I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Public Safety, Civil Rights, and Emergency Management Committee meeting today. It's July 9th, 2014. I'm Councilmember Blong Yang. I'm the chair of this committee. With me today are the following council members: Councilmember Kevin Reich, Councilmember Lene Palmisano, Councilmember Cam Gordon, and Councilmember Abdi Warsame. And I'm guessing that Councilmember or Council President Barb Johnson will be joining us shortly. I wanted to say a few things before we start. One is just that I'm not quite sure how we're going to run this, and so if we stumble along the way, I take full responsibility for that. Two is I wanted to recognize Dr. Josie Johnson, who is in the audience here, and I'm guessing you're here to support some of these appointments, and if you are, if you can let us know, we can certainly let you speak for a little bit too. Okay. So with that, we are here for one specific item only, and that is the appointment of the Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights. I tend to understand that when we start this, we will start with somebody from the mayor's office talking about the mayoral appointments. And so she's shaking her head, so I'm guessing we're probably not going to do that. Well, then we will move on to the Civil Rights Department and have the Civil Rights Department present the mayoral appointments and the city council appointments, and then talk to us a little bit about the technical corrections to the term appointments as well. And once we get that done, then we will have the folks who are being appointed who I'm going to say not want to speak, but should come up and speak and say a little bit about yourself. Just give us your name, give us, where you live, what ward, if you know. If you don't, I won't hold that against you. And then, just say a few things about why you want to be on the commission, and we'll kind of take it from there. And jokingly, I think it's going to be hard to say no to you all, so let's just do it that way. Ms. Newborn? Yeah.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Yang, and I don't see Councilmember President here, but good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today for two reasons. One is to present and introduce the candidates for the Commission on Civil Rights, and two, to propose some amendments to the current terms of our commissioners. So on to the first task, which is to talk about the selected candidates. I wanted to provide some information, some background information about our selection process, and then introduce the candidates over to you. And as the Councilmember Yang stated, that we will allow the candidates to provide some brief statements on why they want to be a part of the commission. So first, please note that some of the candidates that are here today are filling current terms. So some of our commissioners have resigned, and so their term end dates may vary. So that is outlined on the RCA. But to provide you with some background information, there were 8 vacancies on the commission. The city clerk's office received about 18 applications. We began the vetting process in the spring of this year, so around March and April and May. And the selection committees include Director Velma Corbel, Nicole Archibald from the mayor's office, myself, Councilmember Jacob Fry representing the Ward 3, and Councilmember Yang's office, Nikki Mitchell, was on our selection committee as well, representing Ward 5. The selection committee decided not to fill all 8 vacancies because we noticed that there were some wards that were not represented on our commission. Those wards include Ward 4, 5, 3, 6, and 10. So as a department, we decided to not fill those, and the selection committee decided not to fill those vacancies so that we can spend some time with the department recruiting during the next couple of months. So our next cycle of commission appointments will take place in the fall. So we want to spend some time recruiting in those wards where we don't have adequate representation. So that's our selection committee. The majority of the vacancies that we're filling here today are mayoral seats. So the mayor's office was present on the vetting committee, the selection committee, and most of the appointments will be mayoral appointments with one council appointment. The selection committee chose 5 applicants, 2 from Ward 3, 1 from Ward 1, and 2 from Ward 10. The extra person, Commissioner Wendy Adler Robinson. She is listed on the RCA because her term before 2012, the terms used to end in August. And now in 2012, the ordinance was amended so that the terms will now expire in December 31st of every year. So Commissioner Adler Robinson is listed on the RCA, not because she's a new commissioner, she's currently a commissioner, but because we're extending her term. As far as the technical amendments that we are making to, that are listed out in the RCA, a couple of the commissioners had the wrong term listed on their RCA, and so we're just asking the council here to make that change and for it to reflect the appropriate authority, which is either listed as a mayoral appointment or a council appointment. I hope that all makes sense to you all. Okay, great. So I would like now to introduce our candidates. And there are 5 of them. And 4 of them are mayoral appointments, as I mentioned before. We have Amy Berquist, Thomas Gallagher, Mitra Nelson, Christine Peters, Michael Farr, and again, the last candidate is Wendy Adler Robertson. She's not here today, and neither is Christine Peters. And I will be reading a statement from Commissioner Peters as well. But first, I would like to bring to the podium, if it's appropriate and if there's no other questions, the candidate number 1, Amy Berquist.
Ms. Newborn, why don't you just go through everyone and then read the statement of Ms. Peters, and then we'll go from there. Okay.
So again, the candidates that are listed are Amy Berquist, Thomas Gallagher, Mitra Nelson, Christine Peters, and Michael Farr. And the statement that I have from Christine Peterson is dated today's date, July 9th, and is addressed to the Public Safety, Civil Rights, Emergency Management Committee of the Minneapolis City Council from Christine Peterson, Esquire. She says, "Good afternoon, council members. I am hoping to be reappointed to the Commission on Civil Rights as an attorney commissioner. I'm writing to ask that you support my application. I had hoped to attend the committee meeting in person today, but I had work obligations that kept me in my office in Eagan instead. As you may know, transportation to and from the suburbs in off-peak hours is a challenge. In truth, transportation is just one of the many challenges I face on a daily basis as a person with a disability. I have what is politely termed low vision, and while it is more often than not a nuisance, my poor vision has allowed me to see what fully sighted residents of the city may not see. We all know that Minneapolis has not escaped the income disparities that currently plague the country. We all know that Minneapolis has not escaped the education, housing, and criminal justice issues that other big cities are experiencing. We all know, too, that Minneapolis has a history of being a city that cares about its residents and the environment. We are a city that strives to do the right thing, even if our efforts are sometimes frustrated by state and federal policies. Still, while the city strives to do the right thing, I believe residents and businesses have forgotten their roles in sustaining the drive to be an equal opportunity city, in maintaining and nurturing any positive change that comes about. It is my opinion that the Commission on Civil Rights can change that. The city can adopt all the civil rights laws that it wants, and the city and the courts can enforce the laws as best they can. But the Commission is in the unique position of being able to help people and businesses to understand how to embrace the values behind those laws. The Commission can help businesses and residents understand how to work with and live alongside people who are different. The Commission on Civil Rights has the opportunity to make real and lasting change here. I would like to add my voice and perspective to that effort. Thank you for your time. From Christine Peters.
Ms. Newborn, where does Ms. Peters live?
Ms. Peters lives, I believe that she lives, hold on, in Ward 10, but I don't have her exact address before me.
That's fine.
But she does live in Ward 10.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And is it appropriate now to introduce the other candidates?
Yes.
Okay, great. So the first candidate up is Ms. Amy Berquist, and she is from Ward 3.
Okay.
Amy.
And Ms. Berquist, if I may interrupt you just for a second, and I do want to let folks know that this is a public hearing, and this public hearing process is going to be as I said, a little bit bumpy just because this is a little bit unusual, but we're going to make it work. We're going to let all of the folks who are being appointed come up and speak. If you can speak for about 3 minutes about all the things that I mentioned a little bit earlier, that would be great. And then after that, we're going to take comments from the public if anybody wants to speak. I don't see a fully packed room, so we're not going to even do a sign-up sheet. We're just going to have people just stand up. And, when you come up and speak, I want you to speak about the appointments. I don't want you to speak about anything else but the appointments, whether you're opposed to the appointments or in favor of the appointments. We just want the conversation to be germane to what we're talking about today. Okay, that's clear to everyone. And then the other thing I do want to say is that, after your 3 minutes, I'm going to open it up to the council members up here to, anybody who has any questions, please feel free to ask the questions to the appointments. That might sound scary, but I mean, I'm guessing that most of us here just want to ask pretty softball questions, so I'm just going to let that go. And if they get really tough, I might try to save you, but for the most part, we're just going to let this go. So, Ms. Bergquist, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Amy Bergquist, and I'm a staff attorney at the Advocates for Human Rights, which is a Minneapolis-based nonprofit that's been here in Minneapolis for more than 30 years. And I'm a resident of Ward 3. I have been a resident of Minneapolis for more than 20 years. For the first 11 years, I was a resident of Ward 9, and since then I've been living in the downtown east area, which was originally in Ward 7, now in Ward 3, as best I can remember. I would be honored to serve on the Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights. I think the commission is really a valuable resource to our community, in particular the complaint process. I think it's really a great asset to people who live in Minneapolis, people who work in Minneapolis, people who do business in Minneapolis. And I know the Complaint Investigations Division does really hard work and has done a great job on getting caught up on their caseload and ensuring that people have a neutral investigation. I think that's just a tremendous service that's offered to people who live and work in Minneapolis. I think public education and outreach about the commission are critical. I first moved to Minneapolis when I was offered a job to teach at South High School in Minneapolis, and I taught there for 11 years, and I taught civics. And so I personally know how important it is to let our young people know about the civic process and about things that they can do when they see that something is going on that's wrong. And I know that young people are very passionate, especially about issues of discrimination and about issues of fairness. And I think it would be great to use the commission to get the word out so that every student, by the time they graduate from the Minneapolis Public Schools, knows what the commission is and the work that it does and the services it offers, so that we can really capture that passion and energy in our youth. In the Minneapolis Public Schools at South, I also worked with immigrant communities. I worked with newly arrived refugees, mainly from East Africa. And right now, in my work at the Advocates for Human Rights, I coordinate our advocacy at the United Nations, and I also work with diaspora communities that are interested in improving human rights and rule of law in their country of origin and ancestry. So with those connections and that experience, I believe I could be of service to the commission and its work, and also of service to the council. I think civil rights work at the local level is critical. With respect to my work in advocacy at the United Nations, I was in Geneva in March for the Human Rights Committee's review of the United States human rights record under the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And one of the gaps that committee identified was the gap between implementation of our our civil rights and political rights obligations at the national level and implementation at the local and state level. And that's a deficiency that has been identified at the United Nations, and I think that it's an opportunity for me to bring some of the skills I have in my day job to the work of the commission. So that's a little bit about me and why I would like to serve. As I said, I think the commission does great work, and it would be a great way for me to meld my experiences as an educator in the Minneapolis Public Schools and my work as an attorney working on civil rights and human rights at the local and international level to be of service to the people of Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, anybody with any questions? Thank you, Ms. Bergquist.
Our next candidate is Thomas Gallagher, and he is from Ward 10.
Hello, council members. I'm Tom Gallagher. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. My office is about a block away here. And You know, like most of us, or probably all of us, I care about civil rights and racial inequality and other issues related to that. My experience is, to a great extent, through my clients. And being a criminal defense attorney, I represent, for the most part, younger people and less advantaged people in our society. And what I see is that the criminal justice system is the new civil rights frontier. And what we have is a severe disparate impact based on race in the criminal justice system right now. And for example, if you're 800% more likely to be arrested for marijuana in Hennepin County if you're African American versus European American. And I'm sure other racial minorities are probably, you know, at higher rates, but 800% more likely if you're African American to be arrested for marijuana, which is a relatively less serious crime. And that is something that more and more people are realizing that we need to change. Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow, Colorblindness in the Age of Mass Incarceration, where she talked about this a lot. And I endorse everything she says in that book, and I want to act on it. And I'm also a board member of Minnesota NORML, which is a group attempting to legalize marijuana through legislation, through the legislative process in Minnesota. And so I believe that the Civil Rights Commission is a very good thing for us to be doing, because we need to engage the community in these issues and get people involved in our communities so that they feel like they have a voice, they have a place to go, to engage with each other and with the city, with the community, and to a place to go for help with problems with civil rights and discrimination types of issues. And so we need to be there to help people address those issues in every way that we can. And, you know, we have the employment and the other public accommodations, discrimination ordinances and complaint procedures that we work on, and the complaints that we review, or that the department does most of that, that the commission has a role with that as well.
Mr. Gallagher, I'm going to have you wrap up.
Okay. But I just think that it's really important that we, as a commission, do continue to do that good work and to go beyond and to engage the community politically and to help the hearts and minds of our community to get on board with equality.
Thank you. Council members? All right, next.
Our next candidate for appointment is Mitra Nelson, and she is from representing Ward 1. Mitra.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to speak briefly about my interest in serving on this commission and a little about myself. I first want to just say thank you so much for the opportunity to be considered for what I believe is an incredibly important body of the city government. And my experiences that have kind of led me to this opportunity are really just feeling like, as long as I can remember, have been in some way involved with civil rights work, from my parents bringing me to community meetings in St. Paul when I was a kid, to organizing in the Iranian American community in the wake of the events of 9/11 when I was a teenager. After that, becoming a campus activist and working specifically around issues of voter access and racial justice, and ultimately becoming a high school social studies teacher for 3 years and working in urban education. And that last part of my experiences is among the ones that I remember just the most vividly and carry with me everywhere, having seen what our youth are up against and seeing the challenges that they face around housing and long-term employment and economic opportunity, just all of the challenges around access to safe spaces in cities, and just seeing so many things impact them, and also seeing what's possible within the schools. And so I feel that the issue that I bring the most passion for is education, and I also want to join the commission specifically because I think that across issue areas, we need a civil rights lens on everything, no matter what, if we want to become a world-class city where opportunity is available for everyone. And I also have seen how systems are all interconnected. And so just like how I was an educator and working in my classroom, I saw how transportation affected my students and how easily they could get to school. And I saw how environmental racism affected them and how they would develop sometimes asthma and things of that nature, and seeing how stable housing really affected their ability to learn. And so I really think that this commission has the opportunity to sit at the intersection of all those systems and really convene a community voice that is there, that is actively sought out by government, and builds relationships between everyday people and the people who represent them and make decisions. And so I'm extremely passionate about having that youth and community voice as the foundation for what I hope will become a civil rights agenda at the center of city policy. And I just really appreciate your consideration of me and the other individuals nominated here today. So thank you so much.
Council members? Ms. Nelson, I do have one question for you. You use the term civil rights lens, and nowadays, I mean, you're hearing the term equity lens. I mean, are those two different things?
I view equity and define it in my work as everybody getting what they need. I think that there has been a conversation around equality, which actually hasn't resulted in different populations having access to the things that they uniquely need. And my personal experience as an example would be having parents who identify as new Americans. My dad is an immigrant from Iran, my mom's an immigrant from Korea, and they had unique language challenges and transition challenges that maybe might be different for somebody coming from a different situation. And so I think that we need to go deeper and look at equity. And so I don't know how you would parse those semantics, but that's what equity means to me. And I think it absolutely needs to be part of the new civil rights conversation that I think is unfolding right now.
Thank you.
Our next candidate is Michael Farr, and he's from Ward 8.
Council members, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to address you and introduce myself. My name is Michael, or Mike Farr, and I'm a resident of the Kingfield neighborhood in Ward 8 of Minneapolis. I hold a bachelor's degree from the University of Dubuque, Iowa, and a master's degree from the University of Minnesota, Duluth, and a master's of advocacy and political leadership. I am also a returned Peace Corps volunteer. I served in Kenya for 2 years as a public health and high school educator. I'm a native Minnesotan born and raised on a farm in Le Sueur, Minnesota. And I'm currently an organizer in the labor movement, and being appointed to the Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights is an exciting and humbling opportunity for me, one that I shall not take lightly. I look forward to using my experience in the community and community outreach and education to further the mission and vision of the Commission. As a regular volunteer at Our Savior's Homeless Shelter, I experience and witness the effects of homelessness on our city of Minneapolis every month. This is an incredibly complex issue that we face as a city, and I look forward to working with the Commission to look at these problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Right. Thank you, Michael.
And I mistakenly glossed over our last candidate's name. Her name is Elizabeth Loeb, and she is from Ward 3. I didn't want her to get nervous to think that she had been booted off at the last minute. But I would like to introduce Liz Loeb to the podium.
Thank you so much. Thank you, members of the committee, for your time and your service. It is an honor to stand before you as a candidate for the Minneapolis Commission on Civil Rights. My name is Liz Loeb. I'm a resident of Ward 3. I live just in the shadow of the Broadway Bridge connecting North and Northeast Minneapolis, and I work in North Minneapolis at Neighborhoods Organizing for Change in Ward 5. What I love about living in our city is that we know our fates are interconnected and intertwined. We come from different experiences, different histories, different cultures, and different circumstances. But our futures and our health and our well-being are connected to one another in this city. which is why it is a crisis for Minneapolis that we have the worst in the nation racial equity gaps in almost every measure. As an out gay woman, as a member of a religious minority, and as the grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I know what happens when racial inequities go unchecked. I cannot, especially as demographic change happens and we become a majority non-white city, I cannot bring my children up in a state of apartheid. And that is why I am so passionate about serving on the Commission on Civil Rights for this city. I believe the Commission has done incredible work in the past months to consider its role and build a foundation for effective work. And I hope to serve the Commission in 3 ways. The first is in strategic planning. We know that the issues of racial inequity are interconnected. As Mitra said, housing, criminal justice and incarceration, wealth growth, health outcomes, jobs, education, every single axis you can name is actually connected. Nothing shows this more clearly than a recent article in the Star Tribune about asthma rates in particular zip codes along the 94 corridor where I live, and the impact that has on parents' jobs and on kids' schooling and on long-term health outcomes. I believe the Commission has an opportunity to not just react to complaints and to issues, but as it has been trying to do, find a proactive role in bringing about greater equity in the city, and that takes strategic planning, something in which I have deep experience collaboratively across organizations. The second way is in community engagement. We find the best and strongest solutions when those solutions are crafted by the people living in the conditions we seek to address. If we want to find solutions to equity, the voices leading policy and the work have to be the people most impacted. That's how we reach the best outcome. And that takes community engagement. I'm lucky enough to have been a community organizer for a long time. I carry deep relationships across our city and a knowledge of how to work with a group to engage people in a meaningful, authentic, and effective way, and that's what I would bring to the Commission. The third way is in adjudication. I served as a civil rights litigator for 10 years. I litigated with the Center for Constitutional Rights and the American Civil Liberties Union at every level from the most local to the Supreme Court, focusing on voting rights, criminal justice issues, and civic engagement, democracy issues. And what I know about adjudication is that when a complaint comes, it's from people who are upset about what has happened, and each party feels wronged. And often, what we'd like to be the outcome isn't always what matches the fair outcome under the existing rules. And as adjudicators, we have a duty to the existing rules and the fair and unbiased application of those rules in the service of justice. And if there's a gap between what should be and what is, we have a duty to work towards change, but not through the adjudication process. So that's a long way of saying fairness isn't always what you want to have happening. It's looking at the needs of the party and the existing framework that you serve. And I would bring that responsibility to adjudication to the committee. So thank you so much for your time and consideration. I can't say what an honor it would be to fill this role.
Council members, any questions? Ms. Loeb, I have a few questions.
Yes, please.
You were a lawyer at one point, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I recognize something.
Yes.
Second question, how does it feel being the lone council appointment? I'm being funny here, but
I actually hadn't received full information
Okay.
about being the lone council appointment. So
okay, you should be proud then.
that's
okay.
fantastic.
Yes.
I'm very proud of that then.
And
I feel like I'm betraying my lack of knowledge about the process, which I do
no,
not
that's
want
okay.
to do.
That's okay.
but-
Well, now you know.
Thank you.
My third question is a little bit more, or a little bit less of a softball question. You were talking about equity. What does equity or racial equity mean to you?
I'm so glad you asked.
Give me like the 1 or 2 minute answer, not the 2 hour answer.
Differences in outcomes negative outcomes from people of color and far more positive outcomes for white people are due to structural and systemic barriers that create an unfair playing field from the start. If you are not white, there are cards stacked against you that have nothing to do with your own behavior or choices or actions in the world. It is a structural and systemic issue. Equity means two things. It means addressing the structural, systemic, institutional barriers that put people of color on the bottom. And second, for me, it means some form of reparations, that we're in an inequitable and unequal, though equal doesn't cover it. We're in an inequitable situation now, and you can't just solve the problem going forward. You actually have to repair the negative differences that exist now to change the playing field to one where the color of your skin is not an inherited and continuous mark against your chances in life. And that's at every marker: housing, jobs, transit, education.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate being able to talk about it. Thank you.
Ms. Newborn, anyone else? Anything else?
That would be all. It's just on behalf of the department, I would like to present and introduce these candidates to you and to hope for your approval and appointment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody? Oh, President Johnson.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I just have a question for Ms. Newburn. So, Ms. Newburn, did we have a lot of applicants? Did we have a few applicants? What process did we use to vet people?
I can outline that again. We had 18 applicants, and we boiled it down to, we interviewed about 8 to 10 individuals, and then chose 6 candidates. And the selection committee included Director Corbel, Representative, Dickie Mitchell from Councilmember Yang's ward, Ward 5, Councilmember Fry, and Nicole Archibald from the mayor's office.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one more question. Did we have any applications from North Minneapolis, which of course is everybody's talking about, they're so concerned about? Did we have any applications?
We did not.
Is that right? Okay.
We did not. We did not
Okay.
have any applications from Ward 4 or 5.
Okay,
And so
thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
Councilmember Gordon.
I don't know that the council president was here earlier, but we actually have 8 slots, but we're only appointing 6, correct me if I have the number off, because we're holding 2 open because of the recognition that there were a couple of wards that had no applicants and the geographic diversity wasn't in existence. Particularly, I believe it's wards 4 and 5. Was there another ward that has no?
4, 5, 6, and 10.
4, 5, 6, and 10. Did not. So, and I think the plan is to actually do the outreach and the recruitment for the next few months, and in September come back with a couple more candidates. So I'll resist the urge to actively recruit from the second ward, but I would encourage 6, 4, and 5 to get out there and find some people, because I think we really could use
And
it.
we're more than welcome to assist with that as well. So we've put some plans in place to target those wards. But fortunately, we were able to get candidates from Ward 10 and I think maybe some from Ward 6, but I could be wrong about that. But Ward 4 and 5 are our targeted areas, and we have put together a plan to go to get some people to at least apply, get through the process. Yes, that's part of the plan, is to keep you apprised of that plan and to also coordinate with you on some outreach efforts and outreach events that we have in place for the summer.
All right, so we're done with the portion of the appointments where the persons being appointed have spoken. I'm going to open it up to the public. Anybody have any comments? Dr. Johnson, do you want to come up and speak?
Thank you very much. I'm deeply honored that you've invited me to come forward to say a few words. As you know, the Civil Rights Department is a part of my history, and so I feel very connected to what happens in that department and among those commissioners. It is such a critical moment in the ability to select people who have a deep concern about equity and civil rights and justice, and to carry forth for our city the kind of image that I think Hubert Humphrey created for us and what all of you continue to try to do. So thank you. I will watch for your decision and know that it will be the one that most represents our commitment to equity and justice. So thank you for inviting me to come forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Going once, going twice? Okay, we are going to close the public hearing section of this hearing. And council members, any questions or comments related to this before we make a motion? Councilmember Gordon?
I could easily do this after the motion is made, but I just wanted to thank everybody for coming today and speaking, also for applying, for the willingness to do this. I was struck by the passion and the focus of the comments from the applicants. I appreciate the people who participated in the screening and the interviewing panel. I think you did a great service for the council. I actually think that this is a time when I think that we could and should be looking at renewing and strengthening the relationship between the council and the commission. I think that the city council now in the mayor's office has a kind of unique and renewed focus on issues of justice, especially racial justice in the city, and that if we do this right, we could really make a significant difference in the next few years that could really last. And if we don't do it right, well, we'll probably be back dealing with these same issues decades from now. So let's figure out how we can work better and more together, and I hope you are up to the challenge.
Anyone else? I wanted to have a few words. I wanted to reiterate what President Johnson and Councilmember Gordon said, which is that with the appointments that we have, I'm very glad that we have them. But one thing's missing, which is we need some folks from North Minneapolis, from Ward 4 and Ward 5, and Ms. Loeb, you live just right across there, but right, pretty close. But we definitely need to move that so that we have someone from 5 and someone from 4. I think it's really important with regards to the civil rights work that we're pushing. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'm just going to move to approve all mayoral appointments and city council appointments, and to also approve technical corrections to term appointments, and I'll leave it at that. Any discussion? Or could I get a second? Any discussion? Councilmember or President Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and no discussion on your motion, but I can't agree with you more. Just that, I think there is a lot of passion and observation that goes on about what's happening in our community, and there isn't a lot of actual knowledge about the conditions that exist in some of the areas of our city that have been adversely impacted by the things that Ms. Loeb was talking about, education disparities, employment disparities, and criminal justice disparities. And so I agree. I think it's critical that we get some folks from our communities 4 and 5, 2 and 6 to get on the commission, because I think their perspective may be a little bit different. And the living every day in a neighborhood that is, in our case, in 4 and 5 these last few days, under siege practically, colors people's perspectives. And so I think it's really important. And I'm tired of people coming in talking to me in my office, talking to me about what's good for my neighborhoods. And when I ask them, where do you live? Well, it's not in my neighborhood. Everybody knows what's good for us, but they're not living there. And so I think it's really critical that we get some people on this commission from these neighborhoods that are challenged.
I wanted to have Councilmember Warsame speak for himself, but I don't see him raising his card. So we're gonna the motion's on the table. No discussion, and all in approval, please say aye. Aye. Oppose? The motion carries. And with that, we are concluding this meeting. Thank you very much for being here.